Welcome to the Joe Verde program, How to Follow Up and Prospect. In this series, Joe is going to talk with you about how you can sell more cars, increase gross, and ensure your success in today's competitive market.
Welcome back. Well, did you do your homework from the last tape? Did you get your mail outs and evaluate them all? In fact, how many of you need to get some mail outs? Don't have any yet. I hope you're starting to see how this is going to work. This doesn't have to be very difficult. You just need to put a little thought into this before you get started. A lot of you probably need to tone some of your mailers down. I get a lot of really pretty mail outs. And you just don't even trust me on this one. Just try it. If you're doing really pretty mailers, do one that's really simple and see if you don't get a greater response. We had a salesman come to class one time, and he's from Bakersfield or somewhere around here. And he's a really nice guy, and he sent me a mailer, and this was the worst newsletter I've ever read in my life. It was terrible. This guy couldn't spell if life depended on it. Spell checkers come in real handy for that kind of stuff. He couldn't put a sentence together and have it come out sounding right on paper. He talked fine, but when he started trying to put things on paper, it was all messed up. And remember those old blue mimeograph machines we had in high school? Well, he ran his copies off on one of those things, and they were smeared. And he threw in a couple of those little word puzzles and some stuff like that. Now, this was the worst piece of written material I've ever read in my life. And it got the greatest response of anything I've ever heard about in my life. He mailed out 200 of these and got 30 people to call him. And they weren't correcting his grammar. They were calling and responding because it obviously came from him and not the follow-up factor. Had another question here at the break about the scheduling of this stuff. Maybe it sounds to some people like this is getting kind of confusing. Now, if you remember who we talked about scheduling so far, I said that 1,000 people that you mailed to that lease return list, we were talking about the 20 who responded. You don't really have to figure out much about what to do because their response tells you what to do. They're either working prospect and you sell them, or they call and respond and you don't sell them, whatever happens. Well, there's not really any scheduling to go along with that. That's just you're going to take it as it happens. Then on this last tape, though, we were talking about sending out 5 mail-outs a day, 5 orphan owners a day, 5 of these lease expirations a day. So we're going to do it differently than this. So you send out 5 a day. Now, if this is on Monday when you send out the mailer and you need to call them in about a week or 10 days, this is pretty easy. You look to next Monday and you write those 5 names in your planner. Or if you put them in your computer, if you just tag them in the computer, it'll do an automatic callback for you. You just put in the date you want to call them back. So the scheduling is really pretty easy. The 5 you do this Monday is the 5 you follow up on next Monday. And now what happens is that this stuff kind of starts to back up on you, and that's why I hate to see people do too much all at once. You can just let your imagination wander. Some of these 5 you can't get a hold of next Monday, and you're recontacting them by the following Monday. But now you've got 8 to contact because you couldn't get a hold of 3. Now you've also got your sold customers on top of this. That's why don't mail out 10 or 15 a day. Start small. In fact, if you start with 1 or 2 a day until you get used to this, you can always work your way up. If you do 15 a day, you'll be overwhelmed. You're going to have a tough time selling cars on the lot, meeting all those people out there, and contacting 15 people. So be careful with it, tone it down, and we'll get to work on it. On this segment, we're going to talk about how to prospect by telephone. Now, we talked about mail-outs, and mail-outs were either in that section to generate a response, like what we just talked about there, or they were to let people know that you sell cars and where you work, your friends and acquaintances, people like that, some of your old customers, your orphan owners. On this telephone prospecting group, let's talk about the same thing. Let's talk about some groups. Let's talk about what to say to them. Let's talk about scheduling these. And we'll give you some tips and scripts. And for lack of a better place to put it, we'll also talk about how to take an incoming sales call at the end of this one. Now, taking an incoming sales call is going to depend on your selling skills. Now, you've already been through phase 1 and phase 2. We talked about closing and handling objections, the types of questions you need to ask in phase 2. Well, it's the same thing on the telephone. You're trying to get an appointment on the telephone, so you need to learn those either or questions. And if you haven't practiced those, getting a telephone appointment is going to be a little bit tougher. So you need to go back and review selling and closing so that you can handle phone calls easier. We're just going to go through a quick step-by-step process and cover the script. You're going to have to go back and role play it and practice, drill, and rehearse. Turn over to page 39. Let's get started on telephone prospecting. Now, we're not going to do what my manager had me do that first day. We're not going to call 10 strangers and see if they'd like to buy a car from us. We need a step-by-step process. We need a goal with this, and it's easy. On page 39, the bottom of the page. Step number 1, make the initial contact by telephone to introduce yourself. Make the initial contact by telephone to introduce yourself. Now, we'll talk about some different groups in a minute. Let's again take orphan owners for an example. You call the orphan owners. Your initial contact is by phone in this case. We haven't mailed them anything yet. Now, when we contact them by phone, the next step is, number 2, as soon as we get off the phone and we hang up, what are we supposed to do? If we're going to do this correctly and we're thinking about follow-up and prospecting, we're supposed to send them a thank you note. Thanks for your time on the phone. It's all the note needs to say, and I would have those pre-printed. It says, thanks for your time on the phone. All you do is sign it and add a one-line PS. Number 3, obviously you're going to recontact any interested prospects. You're going to run into some people that are in the market for a car. You're going to make some money doing this in spite of yourself sometimes. Sometimes you just get lucky. And as you improve the numbers, the luckier you're going to get. So recontact any interested ones as working prospects. And step number 4, continue with your ongoing follow-up. It's just like we talked about before. We're trying to get from this initial contact down to this master list. And everything that happens in between is great. I mean, if we sell them, I mean, that's excellent. If we don't, that's okay too. This isn't the end of the world what happens with this initial contact with this prospect. We sell them, we go in here. If we don't, they go in here. Our goal is to build this list. See, if I can get you thinking future, this is today, this is today, this is future. We want to build a future. We want to start building our client base so that down the road we can send out mailers to all these people, and we'll use our newsletter, and we'll show you how to do that, so that this master list, these people that already like you, know you, and trust you, starts popping out these responses again, and you'll sell some and some you won't, but they go back in it. And I hope that makes sense. We want to build our master list of prospects. Some quick and easy groups on page 40 to prospect with by phone. This is easy. You don't have to make cold prospecting calls. You have too many warm prospects. Now, I talked about making 5 contacts a day. If you did 5 mailers, you've got 5 people to recontact. Let's say that you did prospect by mail with 5 people. So you handwrite their little 5 envelopes or type them in the computer, and the computer does it for you. You're recontacting those 5 from last Monday. Why not go ahead and make another 5 calls? You know, if a 5-minute phone call really takes 5 minutes, it'll take you about 25 minutes to make 5 of them. If I understand it right, we work about 9 hours. We screw around about 6 hours. You've still got 5.5 hours to screw around. So we really haven't gotten into your screw around time that much yet. And what we'll do is just work the wasted time out of your daily plan here. Some sample target groups, page 40A there. Orphan owners again. Great group. Call them up. And the script by phone is almost the same as the script by mail. You dial and you say, "Hi, Bob. Yep, this is Joe down at ABC Motors. I just want to take a minute to introduce myself and let you know that the salesperson who helped you with your car isn't with our dealership any longer. And just want to let you know if you're ever having problems, any questions, just give me a call and I'll be glad to help." Now our goal, we're going to visit and visit. We've got an orphan owner script here in the workbook. Our goal is to visit. Our goal is to build rapport. We're going to do some light investigating. Our goal is to ask for referrals, which we'll get into in a minute. There's a real simple referral prospecting script that'll work for you almost every time that you use it. And then we're going to talk about some other ways to ask for referrals too. So orphan owners is a great group. Service customers is another great group. I had a salesperson in class the other day, and she said she makes several sales every month off working the service list. She gets a list from the service department of all the people that came in for any kind of service, and she starts calling those. You can make it a kind of a customer satisfaction call. I like to do a lot of mini surveys. I call people and I say, "Hi, this is Joe down at the dealership. Can I ask you a few questions?" "Oh, yeah, I understand you were in a couple of days ago and had your car serviced." I always like to get some information from our customers. Do they normally treat you pretty good most of the time? "Oh, yeah." "They normally do a pretty good job?" "Yeah," and they get you in and out in a pretty timely manner most of the time. I never ask the all-the-time questions. I've been a mechanic, and things don't work all the time the way you'd like them to out in service. So ask that. They normally do a pretty good job, generally treat you pretty right. Most of the time get you in and out in a timely manner, and the answer is yes to almost all of those. If you run across a problem, no problem, fix it, and they'll love you forever. But I say, you know, my customers always ask me about our service department. If you don't mind, I'd like to get some brief information. I ask them those 3 or 4 questions. I say, "Would you recommend our service department?" After they've given me 4 or 5 good answers there, they say, "Well, sure." And great. By the way, while I have you on the phone, let me update my records. How many drivers are in your family? "Oh, Joe, we got 3. And how many vehicles do you guys have?" "Gosh, we got 2 of those. And of the drivers in your family, who's next in line for a new used car?" "Well, it's going to be my sister." "Oh, you're kidding. Pretty soon or down the road?" Take it step by step. Local groups your dealership supports. You ought to sit down and make a list Get your dealer, your general manager, and managers to make a list of everybody in town that your dealership supports. You may have even forgotten you support the drug prevention program. You support the Lions Club. You probably donate cars to the driver's ed program. You do all kinds of things around town. And all you have to do is get a list of these guys. Now, if I call them, I'd call up and say, hi, Bob at the Lions Club or at the local high school. Our dealer supports your group and they helped you with those band uniforms last year. Just want to take a minute to introduce myself. Are they going to listen to you? You bet they have to. Your dealer supports their group. So you got an in right there. They're not going to say, get off the phone. I don't want to buy a car. Oh, I wasn't trying to sell you a car. I just wanted to introduce myself. Get rid of the rejection part. Hardly anybody's going to reject you. D there, it says other groups. These are groups of people that you know, your bowling group, your church group, the Little League, anybody that you come in contact with. That list we made about 2 or 3 tapes ago, we talked about making a list of all the people that you know. That's what we're talking about here. You call the Parents Teachers Association, your kids in 3rd grade, and all these other parents got kids in 3rd grade. Call them up and say, hi, this is Joe. I never met you folks. I saw you at the meeting the other night. Didn't get a chance to introduce myself. Visit, visit, visit. By the way, I work down at ABC Motors. We were doing a little survey, too, the other day, and I was wanting to ask, how many drivers are in your family? How many vehicles do you guys have? Of the drivers, who's next? You'll always get a me or my father or my mother, or sometimes people say, nobody now. Oh, gosh, I didn't mean now. I meant down the road. And you'll find that every time you ask those 3 questions, you get a referral. We were coming back from dinner the other night after a class. One of the nights of class, went out to dinner. The waiter was standing there. He was a stranger when we started talking. We visited there a little bit about dinner, and he was kind of a nice, easy-to-talk-to person. I said, by the way, we were just in a class today. We're doing a little survey about how many cars people have. How many drivers are in your family? He said, 3. I said, how many vehicles you guys have? And he said, 3. I said, of the drivers, who's next? He said, me. He said, I got this car. I put a lot down on it last time, and I just want to get rid of it. I don't like it. Hello. Too bad a car salesman didn't ask him that question, so I got his name and number, gave it to a lady in class as soon as I got back the next morning. On the van ride back, I asked the van driver. I was on a roll, figured I might as well ask somebody else. I said, by the way, we were just doing a little survey in class today. How many drivers, vehicles, of the drivers, who's next? He said, me. He said, I'm going to be trading cars pretty soon. My old car's starting to wear out. Gosh, let me have your name and number. I'll have one of these guys call you. We've got some nice local people here. I said, no problem getting it. This is easy. I really wish all this was a lot tougher. I wish selling was tougher so we could justify missing all those sales. I don't know how hard it ought to be to sell somebody something came to buy it, but I wish it was tougher so we could justify it. I wish follow-up was tough. I wish prospecting was tough. I really wish it was hard so that I could have justified the first 5 years not doing it. And after I learned how to do it, I realized how easy it is. And it almost makes you sick, all the stuff you haven't done. We've been selling cars for years and have never done any prospecting, never done any follow-up to speak of. And we're sitting on a gold mine. And 30, 60 days from now, you start doing this, you'll see a result. A year from now, you'll be amazed at how easy this is. Some tips on prospecting by telephone. Let's keep this easy, too. Let's don't make any of this hard. Page 41, step number 1. Treat telephone prospecting as networking. Talk to people about who do they know and what do they do and stuff like that. I read an article one time that said if you talk to 5 strangers, any 5 strangers in America, after talking to 5 of them, doing some light investigation, you'll find somebody that you both know. That's how private detectives, that's how the FBI finds people, tracks them down. All you got to do is start talking, and you'll find all kinds of things you have in common. What you'd like to do is find a doctor over there that you both know and an accountant over here that you both know, and you guys both use the same plumber. And where do you shop? Oh, we go over there? You got to be kidding. We go over there too. And now you start putting all these pieces together. Treat telephone prospecting as networking. Talk, build rapport, gather information. You don't ever need to push the conversation where they turn somebody off, and you can tell when they're short of time. They say, look, I'm not really interested in buying a car now. Oh, gosh, I just wanted to introduce myself. No problem. Sounds like I've caught you at a bad time. Call them back. Send them a thank you note. Thanks for your time on the phone. Call them back a week later and say, whoa, you were swamped the other day. And you know what? They'll be a lot nicer this time because now you've sent them that thank you note. You didn't try to sell them something, and now they'll talk to you. Number 2, ask for referrals. That's what we've been talking about here. I lead into those referral prospecting questions, and you have a whole page in here on it. I lead into them 2 or 3 ways there. Number 2, ask for referrals, and it says easy ways to lead into referral prospecting and into these 3 questions. If I'm out in service, I lead into it, or if I'm talking to an orphan owner, I generally use the let me update my records. If I was talking to an orphan owner and they say they got their car from somebody else, oh really, do you still have that 94 Pontiac? No, we traded that. Oh really, what do you have now? And while I've got you, let me update my records. How many other drivers, how many other vehicles of the drivers who's next? You can also say, let me ask you a couple questions. You can just say, I want to ask you guys a couple questions. I also use the survey thing a lot. You know, we were talking about cars the other day, and we're doing a little survey. How many drivers are in your family? How many vehicles of the drivers who's next? It worked really well the other night with the waiter and the van driver, and that works well with most people. A lot of us have this fear of how am I going to work it into a conversation and not sound like I'm saying, I'd like to sell you a car. Who do you know that wants to buy one? That's the wrong way to do it anyway. I was taught the wrong way. My manager, when we talked about asking for referrals, also said, Joe, you just sold these guys a car. Go in there and ask them if they know anybody else wants to buy one. I went in there and said, do you know anybody else wants to buy a car? And they all said, no. Now, and then I got lucky. Then I heard a Zig Ziglar tape, or somebody told me to be a little more specific. I think Zig Ziglar said, you got to narrow that down some. When you just say, who do you know who wants to buy a car? That's too broad a group. You're asking of the 250 million people in America, who can you think of? That's tough. Narrow it down to who in your church group, who in your bowling league. When you first started showing this car off to family and friends, who showed the most interest in getting a new car? And that's good in that case. I was also taught the 3x5 card file prospecting method. When you're sitting there in front of a customer and you're done, you just lay out 5 3x5 cards in front of them and say, folks, all my customers give me at least 5 referrals. Here's the phone book if you need to look up any addresses, and walk away. I never did like that one. I was always a little bit uncomfortable with that. I kind of felt like I was being a little pushy. And then I learned these 3 questions. How many drivers, how many vehicles of the drivers who's next? All you have to do is learn those and learn how to use them. It doesn't sound like you're saying, I want to sell you a car. Number 3, when we're talking about telephone prospecting, you need to follow up every contact, every single one of them by mail. After you talk to the orphan owner, that church group or the Lions Club or the PTA, as soon as you get off the phone, tear off that pre-printed note. The note says, I just wanted to say thanks for your time on the phone. Sign it, 1-line PS. Number 4, this is just common sense tips. Number 4, always follow the basic telephone guidelines. Always follow the basic telephone guidelines. 4A, and this should be common sense. You should verify who you're talking to before you start talking. How many times have you called somebody and just start talking, and a couple of minutes later they said, who are you trying to get a hold of? What, Bob? Well, I'm not Bob. Oh, is Bob there? Why not just clarify that in the beginning? The phone rings, somebody answers it. How about Bob? With that question, tone, and inflection in your voice. And he says, yeah. B, introduce yourself. Bob, this is Joe down to ABC Motors. C, you need to see if it's okay to talk. Do you have a second? I had a couple of quick questions. Next one, tell them why you're calling. The salesperson who helped you with the last car isn't with our dealership any longer. Always build rapport when you can. Find the common ground there, network. And the last thing there, always end the call with a benefit to them. And again, Bob, if you ever need anything, just yell. Give me a call, and even if I need to schedule a ride home, I'll do my best to see if I can help you out there. Thanks again, and have a great day. And people appreciate the call. They like the call. On the next page, page 42. And again, we've already talked about this a couple of different times. The top of page 42, call at least 5 new prospects a day. Let's say call or meet at least 5 a day. Now, if you went out to service drive and met a couple customers out there who are waiting for a ride, it's a no-brainer. You go out and say, hi, my name's Joe. I just wanted to introduce myself. Our customers always ask us about our service department. I always like to talk to customers like yourself. Visit, visit, visit. You can do that a couple times a day in your sleep almost. You can make a couple of calls to orphan owners. And I guess you could stop on your way to work at 7-Eleven and introduce yourself to that person. You just made 5 new contacts. It takes minutes to do that. Number 6. Now, when we're talking about telephone prospecting, logically, if the call turns to cars and they say, oh, really, I'm kind of interested in a car. What kind of cars do you sell? Now, we have to create some urgency in buying now. And our goal is to get an appointment. But we got to create some urgency. If they say, oh, I'm looking for an Explorer, do you have any? Gosh, if we're lucky, these things are selling like hotcakes. When's a good time to get together, this afternoon or tomorrow morning? Or we need to talk about the tent sale, and especially if you're doing a follow-up phone call to a working prospect, you got to give them a reason to come back in. But number 6, if the call turns to cars, create some urgency. Number 7, and I have to rely on you remembering some of these things we talked about in phase 2. Those questions that we talked about, those either are questions. They give you control of the conversation. You use them to make an appointment. Number 7, remember, you don't sell cars over the phone. You only sell an appointment over the telephone. Your goal is to get an appointment. If the call turns to cars, your thinking switches from prospecting now to getting an appointment. Not trying to sell them a car. We want to build some rapport. We want to create some urgency. But my goal is to get the customer on the lot. I don't know if you've ever thought about it. On the telephone, you have a 0 closing ratio. I don't know if you knew that. I don't know what you thought you closed over the telephone. Now, I agree, you finalize some sales in people's minds, but they still have to come down and take delivery of the car. That's where the car is sold and the delivery. Now, if you get the telephone prospect on the lot, you have a 50-50 chance of closing. Which is better, 0 or 50-50? You pick. It's just a basic math problem. I hear a lot of salespeople trying to close the sale over the phone. They tell them what the car is going to run, what their trade's worth, what payments will be, how low they can go, and it never dawned on them that hardly any of these people come in. You don't sell cars on the phone, you sell appointments on the phone. Get an appointment on the lot, you got a 50-50 chance of closing. Number 8, you also need to get their address. You can't send that little thanks for your time on the phone note if you don't have an address to send it to. So you need to get their address. How do you get that? What's your address? It's a tough script. What's your address? Well, Joe, why do you need that? Oh, I was going to send you something. Oh, okay. Well, here it is. Number 9, and this is just another tip. Learn to say congratulations. Now, we talked about this in phase 2 and in phase 1 a little bit. If you say thank you, the conditioned response is you're welcome. Now, that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. And when I'm selling a car, I always say, thanks, Bob, I appreciate your business. But the last thing I want Bob to do is thank me for selling it to him. So before Bob drives off the lot, I always say, Bob, congratulations, enjoy your car. What do people say when somebody says congratulations? I think we say, thank you very much. I want that same thing to happen on the telephone. If I can find some reason in that telephone conversation to congratulate somebody if they tell me their kids won the Little League game, I'm going to save that until the end, and I'm going to hang up and I'll say, by the way, if you ever need anything, just yell, and oh, congratulations on winning that Little League game. And they're going to respond with, thank you very much, I appreciate it. And then you say, see ya. Question on that? Does that make sense? Slow this down, go back and reread it. A couple of scripts in here. You've got your orphan owner script on the next page. And I know I talk fast on tape and I talk fast in class, but we've got a lot to cover. That's why you've got a complete workbook. You don't have a workbook with some headlines on it, and it's up to you to fill in the blanks. All the blanks. We've got a workbook with just a couple of blanks in it, and all you got to do is go back and read this, and it'll read like a book. Page 43, you have your orphan owner script. The focus of the call, the steps to the call, and an example of the call. And again, if you've got the computer, it's in there. All you do is pull it up. Your service customers are on page 44. Same thing. You've got the list already in there, or the script already in there. All you have to do is read it. Now, I've said script about 27 times on this tape, and I know a lot of you don't like scripts. You don't like saying what it sounds like is a canned presentation. You need to realize that what you say on the phone now is your script, and your script is worth about what you're selling. So if you're selling 10 cars, making 30 grand a year, you've got $30,000 scripts. I don't know of another way to tell you. If you want to make more money, you have to trade in your words. You know, if you're a mechanic, you go for better tools. If you're in sales, you go for better words. And that's all I mean when I say a script. We put some words together that get you a specific response almost all the time, as long as you say the right words. So your script's on here, service customers too. You can change a couple words, and you need to. You need to personalize it. You need to make it your words. But don't balk at that word script. Learn to say the right things at the right time, and you'll get the right response. Page 45 on controlling that incoming phone call. And again, this isn't about taking incoming phone calls, and it's not about selling. But we're at this part, we might as well talk about it for a second. So let's fill in some blanks, and there's a sample script here too. Again, I want to stress, on an incoming phone call. Now, this is a call that the customer just said, new car sales or used car sales or truck sales. Remember, you got a 0 closing ratio on the phone and a 50-50 closing ratio on the lot. So our goal is always to turn this phone call into an appointment. And I'll tell you before you even start talking on the telephone, if you give them a price, 96% are going to shop the price. You got to be crazy thinking if you give them a discounted price that you're the only one in town that would do that. And they're just dialing from your number to the next number to the next number. So we want to switch from price and trying to sell the car to getting an appointment instead. Number 1, page 45, the first step in your phone script is greet the customer. Now, we know on the lot you're not supposed to say, how can I help you? Because on the lot, when you say, how can I help you, what do people say? Just looking. So you want your new script to be, welcome to ABC Motors, or y'all sure picked a nice day for looking at cars. Pretty out, isn't it? My name's Joe and you're. You want to change that script on the lot from how can I help you to, hi, I'm Joe and you're. And when you ask a question, people have been taught to respond. But on the phone, it's okay. Hi, this is Joe. How can I help you? They're not going to say, just looking. They called you. Number 2, you want to get control. And you got to do this immediately with questions. Get control immediately. That's where those either or questions we talked about in phase 2 come in real handy. You need to get control of the conversation. Now, here's some sample questions for new cars. use cars, and add cars. I'm looking for an Explorer, the base model or something with more equipment. Well, I want this kind of equipment. And any other equipment like this or this? No, that's about it. And lighter colors, darker colors. Well, we want white and your second favorite color. Those will just need to flow out. You have to practice, drill, and rehearse. Number 3. You know, in the old days, we were taught to say, I'm away from my desk and I call you back. Or I'm out in the service department, can I get your number and call you back? And that kind of works, sort of, some of the time. But that's not the best response. That's not the best script here. Number 3, give them a reason why you need to call them back. Now, they gave you basic information on what they're looking for. Now you need to give them a reason to call you back. Great. I'll check on that. It'll take me a few minutes, see what we have in stock, and I'll also check, see what else is coming in. That's all we mean. So one sentence little response here. Go immediately into their phone number. Great, I'll check on all that, and I'll take me a few minutes. I'll call you back in a minute. What's your number? Not, may I get your number? What's your number? People have also been taught to respond to direct questions. Number 5, immediately get their name. What's your number? And they'll give it to you. Well, it's 489-3780. And is that work or home? Well, it's work. And what's the, and your name? Well, my name's Bob. Great, Bob. Ask them to hold for a second now. Now you've already got a number and you've already got a name. I'm calling from work or home? I'm calling from work. And, gosh, I didn't even ask, what was your name? Well, it's Bob Smith. Great, Bob. I'll call you back and say, whoops, hold on a second. Number 6, ask them to hold. Hold on a second. I want to check my inventory real quick. Number 7, confirm that you have it or confirm that it's available. Come back on the phone and confirm that you have it. Bob, got some great news. I've got 4 or 5 of those in stock, just like what you're talking about, and the availability of a whole bunch more, 6 or 8 more, whatever it is. And you do always have the availability. And since you kept it on a generic kind of number there, you went for lighter colors, darker colors, basic equipment, something a little nicer. You didn't get into the nitty-gritty down to everything. You do have several of those in stock, just like what they're looking for. Number 8, switch immediately to an appointment. Great, Bob, I got 4 or 5 of those in stock, just like you're looking for, and the availability of 6 or 8 more. What's a good time to get together? This afternoon around 5:30 or 6, or would 7:30 or 8 be better? Switch to the either or question appointment. And remember, if they say 7:30 would be good, what are you supposed to do next? You're supposed to convert it to 7:15 or 7:45. We'll be there at 7:30. Oh, could you do me a favor and make that at 7:15? I've got some other people coming in. I just want to make sure I'm done. Oh, sure. Yeah, we can do that. All right, I'll see you guys at 7:15. You also need to get them to write the appointment down, number 9. Get them to write it down. Great. Now, do me a favor. Got a pencil and piece of paper? Jot this down real quick. My name is Joe. Spell your last name, Verde, V-E-R-D-E. And I'll see you guys at 7:15 tonight. Now, do you know where we're at? How many times have you ever sold a car to somebody who thought they were somewhere else? They thought they were at the other store because the salesperson assumed they knew where they are. When you say, do you know where we are? And they say, oh, sure, yeah. Well, we're right there on the corner of 54th and 5th. Oh, well, I thought you were down the street. Oh, okay, now I know where you're at. And you'll make sure that they end up there. One other little nifty thing, be kind of handy. Make sure you get your name in there. Do me a favor, write this down. Don't say, write it down. Say, do me a favor, grab a pencil and piece of paper real quick. I want you to write something down. And then have them write down your name, the dealership, and the directions to get there. And okay, again, I'll see you guys at 7:15. And reinforce that appointment again and again and again. Page 47 is a sample script. And again, I believe these exact words are the ones that are in your computer. You can change them, you can alternate them, alter them a little bit. You need to customize it a little bit. You need to make these words your words. But don't leave out the selling part. That's one of the biggest mistakes most people make. They take out the words that make it work. Because, well, I was a little uncomfortable saying, did you want to come at 5:30 or 7? So I just said, when do you want to come down? That doesn't work. Then you get the, oh, I don't know, we'll be there sometime later today. We need to narrow it down with the direct questions. Your homework. Did you learn some things on this tape? What did you learn? We talked about telephone prospecting. We talked about the different groups. We talked about what you need to say and do on a telephone. We talked about making it networking. What were the 3 most important things you got out of this? You know, your manager is going to ask you to fill out a form as soon as the class is over. You should kind of caught on to that one now. But it's real important that you do list the things that you got out of it so that you can go back and work on them. You do a lot of good stuff. There's also a lot of other things that can be changed. Let's go through your homework here real quick. Page 48. First thing you want to do, number 1, because you have to have a list of people to call, you want to get your list together, just like we did in the mail-outs. Your orphan owners, your friends and acquaintances, you're going to mail to 5 or 10 a day, so make sure you have a list, a working list, and start small. Don't start at 10, start at 5. And if that sounds like a lot, start at 1. When you get 1 down, move to 2. When you get that handled, move to 3. Number 2, get your follow-up notes ready to send out after each call. You need a note that says, thanks for your time on the phone today. And all you're going to do is sign it and add a one-line PS. Number 3, get your system organized. If you're using our computer system, get these notes in there. Customize them, make them mirrors. If you're not using a computer system, get your system organized. We're going to talk about setting up a system here 2 or 3 tapes from now. Number 4, practice your scripts. You're going to have to role play these and practice, drill, and rehearse them. I would not suggest that you pick up a phone the first time you go through an orphan owner script and try it on somebody you don't know. You're going to sound like you got marbles in your mouth. If you think I flub a word or two up here now and then, you ought to try it not having practiced it. So practice, drill, and rehearse. Number 5, and this is really important, you want to track everything you do. So log every contact into your planner, your computer, or your card file. You want to track the number of calls, and you want to track the people's names. You want to see what's coming from this response. And if you made 1,000 orphan owner calls and you don't get any response, I suggest you quit making those calls. That one's not working for you. So find something that does work. Number 6, now we've got some serious homework coming up here. Using the scripts in the book as guidelines. Write out your phone script for each of the following calls and practice each 10 times a day for the next 10 days. That's a lot. And a lot of people, I ain't doing that. That's all right. You also won't get rich. It's time to take this stuff serious. If you practice, drill, and rehearse. You know, I was watching a little bit of a golf tournament yesterday, and I watched these guys hit the ball, and they did so much better job than I do. But you know what? If I understand golfers and pros, they hit about 3,000 or 4,000 golf balls a week before they go out there on the weekend and try to have a good tournament. And you need to do the same thing. Practice is what makes perfect. Perfect practice is even better. So get you a partner, double up here, and practice these scripts 10 times a day for the next 10 days. And if you do that, you're pretty much done learning them, because once you learn them, all you have to do is review them now and then to remember them. You got your work cut out. But if you'll learn these things, this gets easier and easier, not tougher and tougher. We're going to start talking about your system. When we come back the next time, we'll talk about prospecting in person. And then we'll get that system set up for you and talk about your follow-up. You guys get to work on this, and I'll see you on another tape. Until then, have a great day.